Good afternoon and good morning. Can everybody hear me? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, great, great.
Yes,
Good
yes.
morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the Salary Negotiation Workshop. This is actually our part two. For those of you who are not on the first one, it's called the preparation. I deemed this a few weeks ago to probably be the most important part of salary negotiation because I don't think we put enough value into it, or maybe we don't know where to go or how to approach it. So I'm very excited about today, and I'm going to get started. We had our first workshop and we heard about the overview of salary negotiation, just from the beginning to the end, and we learned that it was a very rich process. So I'm going to go over some of the key takeaways from our first session. But I also want you to know that those of you who were on the session and even those who are new, we listened and we got an overwhelming response of positivity, of knowledge that you just don't hear everywhere. It was always our intention to give you information that you just can't Google, or you may Google, but you can't find in one place. And the real value is to bring in guest speakers who do this day in and day out, asking the experts. Because if you are going to a potential company or in a company, you may get limited information, but why would they really give you the information to properly negotiate your salary to get the highest salary possible? Probably not. So that's why we're here today, offering you the right information in the right place. We also realize this is a very full and rich subject. So we want to leave a lot of time for interaction because you're going to have questions. But there is so much that goes into this. We say the preparation, but it could actually go back to um, your resume. It could go back to your professional profile. It could go back to networking. There's so many things, but that's why I say preparation is so very important. We're going to take a snippet of that, but again, we leave this forum open for you to ask questions. Welcome, everybody. So first I will talk about me and Change Your Story. My company, Change Your Story, does professional development coaching. We were formed in 2014 with the mission to equip you with the professional skills to be the best personal you. I will explain to you what that means. A lot of times we sit in our workplace, in our office, we may get promoted, or we're trying to get promoted, or we're trying to start our businesses, but we really don't. We know, say, our foundation, say you have a degree in finance, degree in human resources, you may know your trade, but how do you really know how to leverage your particular skills? I will tell you my story coming from Virginia originally, and then going to New York, the big city. And in those boardrooms, I didn't see people who looked like me. There were very few women, and they were probably one or two people of color. And so I think I knew what I was doing to get there. But once I got there, I felt odd. And so I wanted to know, like, how do I fit in, or should I fit in? I did a lot of study. I got a career coach myself, and I had to learn that who I was enough. There were just some skills that I needed to hone. Perhaps as leadership, perhaps as networking. For me, it had to be learning how to be a stronger person on the inside, to know that I was valuable, that what got me there made me enough. I just needed certain skills to move me forward, whether they be communication, like I said, networking, leadership, time management, different things. So what I basically do is show you, you are enough. That's why it doesn't say change you, it's change your story, because we're telling ourselves things that, hey, maybe I'm not, maybe this was a fluke. We all heard about the imposter syndrome, or that state where you say they're going to find out I'm a fraud, even though, come on, you're not. What do you really need to do? Let's speak back base. Let's look at you and leverage your strong skills along with the things that you really do need to improve upon to be the best you. And then that will allow you maybe not even to fit in, because that's not your goal. It's to achieve and be successful within yourself. What I offer is one-on-one coaching, workshops such as today, because I love bringing you the information that helps you to be successful. I do workshops on my own, but I absolutely love when I can bring in guest speakers. I haven't always done that. So this is probably the second or third time, and I'm really getting a lot of value. I learn, and the audience learns as well. I also have a year of you planner, which gives you, it's 1 year of learning to study, how to study yourself, actually, I think you should know more about yourself than any other thing that you study, because this is going to help you in times of insecurity, because it will build on who you are. It will make you confident. It's something that I do, and people resist this, and I wish they would not. It's called not just a vision board, but an accomplishment board. So a lot of us, when we clip out vision board pictures, we do nice cars and relationships and pictures of money. But those things can be, that's nice to go for. I don't have any qualms against that. But what did you accomplish? Because I find what you accomplished in the past can move you forward, right? You say, well, last month I was able to do this, or 6 months ago I was able to do this. So when something comes up, you're able to build on that confidence to say, wait, I did it once before, I can do it again. So that is what my year review planner is about. You can see my website, and you see here changeyourstory.today to take advantage of one of those, or two, or how many ever you would like. Today's agenda, we're going to first review key points from our previous workshop that was on June 20th. We're going to meet the expert, the guest speaker for today. We're going to talk about stages of preparation. Then we're going to leave time for audience interaction, as I said, and the final, which is a contact us, so you know how to get in contact with us after today's workshop. When I'm looking at the previous points from the workshop that we had on June 20th, which was simply called salary negotiation, number one, this really stuck out to me, but also our audience, because we did a post survey and they were really, the participation was great and very vocal about what they learned. And I appreciated that, because it also helps us set the scene for our next and upcoming events. So one is your ability to negotiate salary will impact not only your current salary, but future increases related to salary, merit, promotions, bonuses, and retirement bonuses. Now, what I really liked about this, when I read it, we had two guest speakers last time. And I mean, when this statement was said, and the person who said it is our guest speaker for today, so I love this, it really struck me, because we might think, okay, well, I won't do it this time, I'll do it next time. Or we might think that maybe because we're intimidated, oh, I have to learn the skills next time, or I really need a job this time. So we talked a lot about when you should negotiate in our last workshop. So it was excellent. But I never thought about this, to what you do today as having future impact. We know it does in a lot of things. Whether they say the habits you do today will be the person you are tomorrow, different things like that. But this was actually very, very true. And as I worked with the guests, the experts last time, I learned why this was true. We'll talk about it a little more today. I find that even in your mentality, when you start doing something, you practice it, it becomes easier, or it becomes ingrained in order to do it again in the future. But also, as you know, those of you who are already in the work world, when you have a negotiate your salary and get a higher base or salary or whatever base or equivalent, then you start on a higher ground for the next time. So say today you make a base of 50,000, right? And then you negotiate it up to 60,000. That means that the next time when you're getting increases, you continue to get increases off of that base. It's harder when you're at 50 not to negotiate. And then next time you're just getting those inches up from that smaller base. So again, we're going to discuss this more today, but it just made such a difference to me in our last workshop. The next one is, do not approach salary negotiation as a battle. It's intimidating for sure. It's not easy, and it can cause anxiety. And also, if you feel like you're underpaid, I do have a situation that once I found that I was underpaid, and it can cause emotions. But when you approach that, you can't approach it in a battle, as a battle, or in a confrontational way. You need to say, I'm getting ready to have this objective and fact-based discussion, because you're giving the company or the vendor or whoever the benefit of the doubt to say, all right, I'm going to give this a chance. I want to be able to have this mutual discussion about my compensation. We'll talk more about that as well. And then salary negotiation includes salary equivalence. This was a big aha for us last time as well, including bonuses. So sign-on bonuses or annual bonuses, benefits like education, childcare, flexible time, and additional vacations, etc. Certain things like that. So for example, if your company tells you, okay, you got this 50,000, you want to make 10,000 more, and they say, well, I'm sorry, your salary's set, but we're going to pay for your education. That's money you didn't have to spend. And also something we learned last time is, what if you get a better work schedule? I will say someone told me years ago to calculate my hourly salary, my hourly wage. And I said, absolutely not, because I know I would be paid very low because of all the time that I put in. I'm a salaried person. Um, but if your company could guarantee you 30 to 40 hours as opposed to somebody's working 60 to 70, maybe that's your salary increase right there that allows you to do other things, figure out what's important for you, time with your family. Maybe you have that entrepreneurial venture like us on the phone, some of us on the phone, and we now have time to do that entrepreneurial venture that leads us to another salary, perhaps takes us out of the corporate workplace into our own business venture, and then it was worth it. So please be mindful about what salary means to you, what kind of compensation that means to you, your highest priorities. Is it family? Is it your education? Hey, childcare costs a lot. So what if your company tells you, but we will pay for that childcare? Then that would equate to a salary. And we not maybe we aren't walking out with say the 60,000, but we're walking out with much, much more. Today's guest speaker, Myrna Rich Ray. You remember her from last time if you were on. If not, welcome. You're in for a treat. She is a human resource executive and she's an entrepreneur. I did not put this entrepreneur in last time because I think we were talking more about overall human resources. That's why her profile still talks about where she's skilled, 25 years of experience, consumer products, retail and restaurant services, healthcare, manufacturing, distribution, and publishing. You see, she's very much qualified on paper. However, I know her because she was one that did something that I never had done before. I was working at my company. I had many years at first of career progression, steady. And I was feeling pretty good about my career. But then she came to me and said, can I have a conversation with you? I didn't know her. She had transferred from a previous state to another where I was working. And she said, I see that you had steady progression in your career, but you seem to be stalling with your salary and with your promotions. So, okay, I thought I was pretty good because people were calling on me to do things like, oh, get Rachel, she'll solve this, she'll do that. I was kind of popular, but it's not being facetious. I had a personal sense of satisfaction with my accomplishments, right? I had moved around in my company to different states. Ooh, mute if you aren't muted, please. Myrna, unless that's you. So I felt pretty good about myself. However, when she talked to me, I realized, oh, I haven't been looking at this. And that actually hurt me. It put me behind by quite a few years. That's how I came to know her. I found that she does this on a regular basis. So when I say entrepreneur, she coaches as well. She also used to own fitness centers because she's very much into health. And I think she does something in that space as well. Actually, I know she does in terms of fitness and health. But I like because it's her physical fitness and also our mental and career fitnesses in conjunction. So Myrna, I will not let her go in terms of being a colleague and now a friend. So I'm glad that she was able to make the time to come back to us today. She's always very busy. And she was the one who talked about the philosophy on salary negotiation as being your ability to negotiate salary, how it impacts not only the present salary, but future increases. And that's related to salary and the salary equivalent. So without further ado, we're going to start our program for today. And please know that you can ask questions in the workshop, but know that we will leave extra time at the end. Please, like I said, please stay on mute unless you want to ask a question, and being on camera is totally up to you. So we'll take a break, like a 5-minute break in the middle so that you can get your water, bio break, whatever you want to do. All right, preparation. It has a lot of syllables, right? But it's a big concept. So Myrna and I are going to play a little bit of back and forth today. We want to make this conversational. We want this to understand how important it is, but most of all, we want you to get what you need. Get what you need from this workshop, no matter what stage that you're in. Now, we won't be able to answer every specific thing. If you saw at our last workshop, we ran out of time for Q&A. But we had presenters, they still filled it out. And some things did require one-on-one coaching because there are some situations so specific that I can't evaluate one person's complete situation on the call. And should we want to, right? We want to be mindful of everyone. That's also why we limited the participation to have a smaller group today, to make sure that we all get a chance to get our questions answered. But it's worth it to get a private consultation, because say that you spend a small amount for private consultation, but then you end up making like 30% more in your salary. It's more than worth it. All right. The 3 stages of salary negotiation preparation are mentality, know your value, and know your market value. Now, again, these are written by us because we found them to be most important given our experience and our coaching experience. There's a lot of things, like I said, it's the networking, it's making sure that you have the right professional profile. There are all kinds of things, but what we're talking about is 3 specific areas: mentality, knowing your value, and knowing your market value, which to me is very intriguing with this market value. With regard to mentality, so I have this, I love the little engine that could. I actually have this on my business cards. I hope I'm not doing a copyright infringement violation, but I think I can. A lot of us say think. A lot of us doubt ourselves. A lot of us doubt our capabilities. When I was reading the book, what is it, by Mika Brzezinski, about knowing your value, she said, she talked about the time she went to ask her executives for an increase in salary. She was making so much lower than everyone else. And the way she approached it was, and she was so hesitant, so insecure, that they basically flipped her out of the office. Get out of here. I also work with someone who went through the exact same thing. First of all, when you come to ask for the salary increase, or what I always talk about is first, I call it the salary review, is because you feel that you're deserving, not because your colleague says this is what I make, not because you figure, okay, I don't have enough money to pay my bills. You have to really think about this. What am I asking for? Why do I want this? And that's why our next 2 slides talk about the more fact-based approaches, but internally, you need to make sure that you're in the right mindset. And again, it's not the confrontational way. It's let me think about this. Let me talk about this. Let me do the right research. And then let me walk in knowing that I am enough. I am skilled. I am worthy. I am more than enough. I got to this position for a certain reason. I graduated for a certain reason. I'm changing positions, and I've been successful in the past for a certain reason. Again, this is accomplishment board that always helps. And there's things that I have done and that I believe and that I know that make me able to walk into this meeting and be able to advocate on behalf of myself. I take myself seriously. I take my career seriously. And this is what I need to be successful. And it can't come from, someone else can pump you up. You can have that strong network of people, but ultimately you have to look in the mirror and decide, I'm doing this not just because everybody's doing it. I like something else, Myrna, you put in some notes about don't do it just to do it. No, do it because you feel that you are worthy. You found that you are worth more. You found that there's areas that you need to develop, like say when we talked about the education, and that you want to come to your company and negotiate. So it's worth it to, in your head, first step back, think about who you are and why you want this increase and why you're worth the increase. So I think just get in the right mental state. Myrna, do you have anything to add on this one?
So first of all, I apologize. My internet was going in and out. I have a hotspot on. Hopefully I'll stay stable, but I am so excited to be here. Rachel and I are looking at this as a roundtable discussion so that we can provide you with information that you have at your fingertips that can be useful to you. I think when we start talking about the mentality, it is about knowing what you are bringing to the table. It's about your level of confidence. And there's so many times that we feel that we're not competent or we're not capable of getting what we rightfully deserve. So we're hesitant. So when she talks about this mindfulness, this state of mentality, she's really talking about you looking at yourself and feeling comfortable that this is something that you have earned, that you are, if you want to say, worthy of, but that is also something achievable. So when we say, I think I can, I love that little story about the little engine that could. I think I can, I think I can, but knowing that I can. So one of the things we say in another one of my community is you gotta know that you know that you know. So know that you can. We're going to just start off by talking about, you want me to switch or keep going?
Go, keep going.
Oh, okay. Talking about understanding your value. So Rachel has talked a lot about this mental state in being able to bring data, bring concrete information to the organization or to your boss about your value. So one of the things I always like to start off with is some research and some numbers. JDP, which is a talent screening organization, published an article earlier this year. And in that article, they pointed out a couple of things. One is they said that 40% of candidates negotiate every offer. The second thing they pointed out, and this was through 2019 Job Seeker Nation report, which comes out through JobBite, is that 60% of those individuals said they felt somewhat comfortable in negotiating their salary. Now, this is actually 60% higher. I'm sorry, this is actually 51% higher than the previous year. Lastly, what this article told us is that 83% of those individuals that negotiated their salary, they said that they received more money.
Can you say that again, please?
83% of those individuals that said they negotiated their salary received more money. Now, it doesn't go into how much, but the fact that they received more money, I think, is very relevant. Two things that I want to note here. One is exactly what Rachel just emphasized. 83% of them said they received more money. And then the other thing that I want to emphasize is that 60% felt that they were somewhat more comfortable in having that salary discussion. Now, I don't have any data to show why people were more comfortable, but what I will say is I believe that people are becoming more comfortable about what they bring to the table. So they're beginning to feel more comfortable about their value. Let's talk about your value.
Myrna, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you just for a second there. As an HR professional, you come across this all the time, and you come across people that are negotiating versus not. What do you think about the person who comes in and negotiates with you? Like, is it a turn off, or do you have more respect for them? Give us some insight on that.
So not only am I an entrepreneur where I have to really focus on making sure that I'm interacting with businesses and presenting myself in a certain way, but I also have a day job where I recruit people, work with hiring managers, bring people through the hiring process. Now, I've had many people negotiate. There's a wrong way to negotiate, and there is a positive or a right way. Most of the time, my expectation and the leader's expectation is that a person's going to come back and say, I was really looking for X amount of money. So we're prepared for that. And we discussed this on our first conversation or in our first workshop, is that usually an employer has two numbers in mind. They have the number that they're going to offer you, and they also have another number where if you come back, there's a range that they're going to go to. So if you come to me with some data and we're having a discussion, we're probably going to walk through and be able to align with an agreement, and you'll have a successful career. I'll be working with you as far as your development. I want to give you two examples, one of a good negotiation and one of a negative. The first one, I had a young lady who just recently, right out of school, she was coming in as a primary therapist. We gave her an offer, And this young lady did not call me, but she sent me an email. And what she presented in the email was information about that job title, the specific components related to that job, the location that she was going to be in. She was actually living in Georgia, moving to Chicago. So really picking out that specific geographic area and what they were paying in that area, and then said, I would really love to take this job. This is the amount that I was hoping to get. That's a positive experience. She did some research. She wasn't throwing out, I feel, or it would be nice, but she came to the table with some data, and the data was accurate. So we ended up not giving her that dollar amount that she requested. But what we were able to do, Rachel talked about some of these other commensable or some of these other benefits that you might have when you're negotiating a salary. And one of the things that was important to her was her COBRA. Because of our insurance, she wasn't going to be immediately covered under insurance, and she was going to have to pick up COBRA for 2 months. And that was something that she was able to negotiate. So that was.
Myrna, if I'm repeating, so she came back with a dollar amount, and the way that she approached it, though, was in a professional, confident manner. You were not able to give her an increase in her dollar salary because that was set, but you were able to pay her COBRA, which I know from experience, that's a lot of money. Can you maybe talk about what the equivalent of that COBRA was, maybe dollar-wise?
So in her case, because she was looking at a family plan, that COBRA was about $5,000 for the 2 months.
Oh,
we covered.
Okay.
So,
and she was happy.
And she was grateful because it didn't increase her bottom line. Again, one of the things my philosophy is negotiating that salary is going to help you through your career. It didn't increase her base, which means if she would have gotten a $5,000 on the base, when she got her merit would be increased. But what it did do is it kept money in her pocket. So now, because of COVID-19 and because of some of the other things that are happening within the industry, companies may be negotiating a little bit differently so that they can control their expenses. So that is just one of the examples that was very positive. It was a discussion. She came to me and discussed what her desire was, and we were able to come to an agreement.
I like that.
I had a horror story. I've only had one of these in my career, and we were hiring a chef. And one of the things I want to back up to this story with the first young lady, Elise, when we went back to her for negotiation, first of all, she was our only candidate. We had another candidate that was number 2, but Elise fit the job, the culture, the mentality. We wanted her. So don't ever think that an employer is not willing to make accommodations, because by the time they get through all of these interviews, they pay for advertisement, they pay people to interview, they've screened, they have given you an offer, they want you. So we were willing to go the extra mile. And I guarantee you, if she would have said, I was really looking for blah, 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 we would have offered it to her. We were opening up a new facility and we needed her. So we would have offered that salary to her. The horror story was with a chef. We've done a lot of work with hiring a chef. The interviewing process is pretty extensive. They bring in some of their dishes. We do taste tests. We spend time with them, trying to understand their interactions with people. How do they handle stress? So we did a lot of work. We presented an offer to a chef, and on the phone, this person started screaming. She cursed me that we would offend her with such a salary that was below her expectations. She again talked about how good she was and how we should be ashamed of ourselves to present her with this offer. She went on and on. And then she sent an email to the CEO, to the president of that specific division. So not only did she send it to me, but she sent it to people I couldn't even hide to say, oh, she had a bad day, and not tell anybody about the bad day. With that individual, one of the things that showed, especially as an HR professional, I'm coaching the managers on employee relations. So the very first thing that showed me is that this is the character of that individual. She's going to perform like this on a daily basis in the kitchen. When there is stress, she's going to treat people who report to her in the same way, if not worse. She's going to be a problem. So we rescinded the offer.
So it sounds like you actually evaluate people's personalities, right? From the way that they negotiate their salary. Like you said, the first one, you thought, okay, the way that she came back in a positive manner, very fact-based and just confident, then she would handle her job that way. Would that be true?
It would. It's more than their personality. It's their temperament.
Mm-hmm.
It's their, it relates again to your personal values and how you believe you should interact with people, whether it's in a stressful time or whether it's in a time when things are running really smoothly. And so things like that resonate with employers because those are individuals that you spend a lot of time with, and you really want to make sure that those are individuals that are going to be able, you know, to cast their shadow. So the shadow that you cast should be a shadow that you want other people to walk in. So that's something that we really look at, and that it's more about their temperament and it's more about their values. If this is what's inside of me when I am in a really, really stressful situation, that's what's going to come out.
Got it.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your worth and your value. Most of the time we see these terms interchangeable, but I think for career purposes, you really should look at them a little differently. When we look at your worth, you're talking about the amount of money that you expect to receive based on your training and based on your experience. Now, when you talk about your value, you're looking at the strengths and the contribution that you bring to that position or that you bring to the organization. So this is what Rachel and I are calling your market value. Your market value is the estimation of how much you expect to earn based on your title, based on your experience, based on your skills, based on your education. Why is this important? This is important because the market value, now market value is different. We're going to talk about that. The market value of that job is constantly changing. This is applicable for all of us. Those of you that are looking for new jobs, it's applicable for me as an entrepreneur, and it's also applicable for people who are in their same jobs looking for increases. So let me talk about market value, your market value. Let me give you an example. My market value as an event planner is different if I have successfully held a 5,000 person fashion show event than it is when I first successfully completed my 10-person baby shower event. So you see the difference? My skills, the complexity, the scope of that job has not necessarily changed, but my skill, my value as an event planner has changed. The other thing that I want to point out is that not only does my market value change, but the market is constantly changing. So let's talk a little bit about the market. The market value is the worth of the position, and it's determined by several things within that's happening within the world. So the market is the piece of the puzzle that determines the compensation for your job. Now, it is there are several things that contribute to market value. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's just talk about automation. We've recently, over the last couple years, have seen self-checkouts in the grocery store. So prior to that, years prior, we saw how the gas station industry changed, where there's self pumps, and all of that automation has changed. We even see this when we apply for jobs. Companies are using artificial and simulations, AIs to screen our resumes. So you're seeing how this automation has changed the market. One of the things I want to point out is, I know you can see this in a whole lot of other things, but let's look at some of the other things that determine how the market value is. The industry helps to impact the market value. Look at what's happening within the tech industry. Look at what's happening in the healthcare industry, publishing. Even the size of the company will impact the compensation that is related to that position or that job. Therefore, we know that the market value is attached to many different things. And the market value is what a company is willing to pay for a specific job, encompassing all those tasks, all the things related to that job. So it's the task, it's the level of supervision.
So Marty,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I got too much feedback here. Had to readjust my speaker. Yes, no, it's too much feedback in my speaker. I don't know what happened. But if I'm listening to what you're saying, because I know we have the knowing your value and knowing your market value. Starting with your market value, it's what's going on in the industry, right? So if I'm taking notes. I hope everybody's taking notes, because yes, we have some blurbs here on the screen, but I like to make sure that we have time for ad hoc talking, because there's so much information in this subject. So first, if I took in what you said about the event planner, this is meaningful because, to your point, if I have successfully completed, I'm more popular in my industry, that allows me to charge more, right, for my services, right? Than someone starting out or someone who does things on a smaller scale. I remember reading about a personal trainer, and he had built himself up to get celebrity clients. And so what he used to do, he had his mobile service, and he went to movie sets. And at that point, he used to charge $5,000 an hour.
Wow.
Where the ones that I see today charge $60 an hour. You know, it depends on what you have. And then if I listen to what you said, the second one, and it makes so much sense, what's popular in the world today? So artificial intelligence for sure, because that's what everybody's using. So when I go in there, I can maybe, depending on my experience. So we're going to talk about knowing your value, and with the market though, I can ask for top dollar because I know this is something that's popular. If I think about now COVID-19, and I want your opinion on this as well. What I've seen in the supply chain industry is that they are paying more because they realized with COVID-19, we weren't able to ship. E-commerce was something that was popular, and only Amazon and such companies that invested there could respond. So and also I heard about a social worker who was able to then give services to people impacted by COVID, right? And he was giving grants by the government to be able to do that for himself. But also, if you're getting hired into a company, I know several people who got social worker jobs because people are now getting more traumatized. So in looking at those things, people who were before, first of all, they can get a job now if they're in these relevant fields, but they could also ask for more money because, to your point, the market value is higher. So that helps them to be able to take advantage of this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So so I want to just point out a couple things. Let's just go back to your market value. So when we talk about your market value, you're talking about your worth, the skills that you bring to the table. You're talking about the experience that you bring to the table.
Is this value or market value, Marna? I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. I gotta.
Your value.
Okay.
Your
Okay,
value.
going
So
back
we're
there.
still on the same slide. So what I want to point out is there are some tools right at your fingertips when you want to evaluate what your values are. Now, Rachel has listed a few of the tools, but I'm going to start out with a couple that I think are pretty familiar. And I'll start with Salary.com. Salary.com is one of the well-known sources that you can use to find out what your worth is. One of the great things about Salary.com is that it matches your job description to benchmark job assessments that come directly from employers. It's a leading consumer resource for compensation data. So Salary.com not only helps employees or people understand their worth, but it also works with organizations, puts together salary surveys so that organizations can provide competitive salary. That will help them attract candidates, but also to retain top talent. So Salary.com, I think, is one of the well-known and provides you some great data that you can use for your research. Glassdoor is another great source. The difference in Glassdoor is that it is employee reported. So Glassdoor not only has listings of jobs, but what it also has is information about the company reviews. It tells you specific ratings on CEO approvals. It provides you with salary reports, with interviews. So this information is a little bit different because it is information that comes directly from the employee. One of the things I want to point out about Glassdoor is many companies are even using Glassdoor as a benchmark to gauge the associate engagement within their company. We were putting together our yearly associate engagement survey, and what we looked at was what was Glassdoor saying the best companies are doing. And so Glassdoor is one that's pretty popular. The very first one that Rachel lists here is Dice.com. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Dice. We use it because we have a really strong technology piece of our business. And so Dice.com, a lot of individuals in the tech field utilize that. But what Dice.com does is it provides you with a predictor of what your estimated pay will be based on your job, based on your skills, your job title, your experience, and the location. And then it compares it to similar roles. So that also helps you have a comparison. Now, when you start talking about that location, you're really talking about what's happening within the market. Lastly, PayScale. So PayScale is it's a compensation software and data company. PayScale is a little different than Glassdoor, where employers really focus on using this to help manage how they treat employees from a compensation perspective. So employers will use PayScale for data so that they can help set their compensation structure, help to come up with or to gauge their compensation, I guess, philosophy. And it's also good for employees because it helps you match your job, your location, your anticipated job with what you need for those specific incidents. Pay scale is the leading compensation in the market, compensation source in the market of this whole resource on compensation.
So Myrna, what I like about, and you told me about pay scale, I'd never heard of that. And I like because it has, like, how should I pay for, like you said, employers, they can use that as a reference as well. And what am I worth? Because you listed something here that I added in the slide, knowing your KSAs or your knowledge,
yeah.
skills, and abilities. Because a lot of people go on these sites, salary.com is very popular as well as Glassdoor, and they say, okay, I am a administrative assistant. This is what I need to be paid. However, you don't look at what's your knowledge and skills and abilities compared to what they're saying is in the industry. And pay scale also has this. They say, what am I worth? What are your skills? What your skills are worth in the market is constantly changing, to your point. And then you need to play apples to apples. If you're going to say, hey, I need this increase, which is 50% more than my salary, you need to know that, but these are the skills and this is the work that I need to be doing. Am I qualified for this right now?
Pay scale breaks it down to where you can really get a very accurate pay structure. So part of what pay scale does, when you look at the KSAs, they look at, okay, you've been a HR director. You've been an HR director for how long? Well, what's your education background? How many people do you lead? And so where do you live? So pay scale is breaking it down. So you get how many weeks of vacation. So they are taking who you are, what you do, and then comparing it to those other components in that specific area. So pay scale really has 3 different areas you can go to find out what you're looking for in your next job, what you are looking for in your present job, if you're being paid appropriately. So it's a really good tool to look at. And it doesn't take but a few minutes for them to produce this free report, which is what's so valuable.
Did you say free?
Free, absolutely. I like free too.
Me too.
It doesn't mean that it's bad. One of the things I want to talk about when we talk about your market value determines what the organization I shouldn't say will, but what the organization is willing to pay for that job. So again, market value becomes a little bit more granular because it's looking at the task, the level of supervision, how many people are you supervising, the complexity of the job, the scope, etc., as well as a specific market. So let me give you, and this is what companies use to determine their pay ranges in a compensation structure. You talked a little bit about this earlier, but you didn't go into a lot of detail. But let's just think about the market of technology and one specific job within the technology field. Right now, a design architect is worth more to Zoom because immediately in April, they had to come in and design some additional security programs for that system because Zoom just built up. That position is worth more now than it was in 2005. Why? That's because the industry and the market is constantly changing. So it behooves you to continue to kind of look at what your skills are, continue to build those skills, and look at what the industry is recommending or what's happening within the industry as far as need. Not because of these needs within the industries and within the market, companies will take that knowledge and decide on what their compensation philosophy is or their compensation structure. Now, every company doesn't have a compensation philosophy. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but what that means is when you look at salary.com or you look at some of the larger organization surveys, they will give companies a range. So for, let's just take a design architect, because that's what we're talking about. And they'll give you a range. A design architect might be at, let's say, 150 to 300. Now, a company's philosophy, compensation philosophy will say, oh, we're going to pay at the low end of that 150. Where another company's philosophy will say, we're pretty aggressive, we're a tech company, we're going to pay at the 75 percentile of that specific range. Now, every company doesn't have that. So you wonder, how do companies or how do leaders come up with what I'm going to pay for a job? Some leaders will just say, who did we place in that last job? What did we pay them? Some leaders will go by instinct. I believe a director is paying this amount, so let's pay the manager this amount. Some leaders even take some of the free websites. Rachel has on here the Bureau of Labor Stats. So they'll even go there and take information from that free website, and they can get information from there, which is good, but it's gonna also give them an average. The successful companies will use things like salary.com, PayScale. Some of the larger organizations will use like a Mercer or a Towers Willis Watson, so that they can get exact dollars so that their pay ranges are accurate. Not where they're just matching up job titles, but they're looking at components, skills within that job. So things that are related. Job titles are not always equal. We know that from company to company, the things that you do within one job may not be the same thing that with the same title in another job. So again, we want to point out some of the tools that you have directly at your fingertips to help you understand the market. So we talked a little bit about salary.com, Monster. You don't hear a lot about Monster now, but one of the great things about monster.com is that it is a global leader in connecting employees with employers. Monster focuses on publishing these jobs, but also focusing on giving both the employee and the employer tools to help manage their career. Once you get into a job, understanding how to get into the job, it provides you with free resources on skills and training. It also provides the employer with resources on how to build or how to performance manage that talent and build that talent up. So monster.com is a great resource, looking at open jobs, finding out where that job is located and what is being paid to that specific job. That's a great way to see what the market is paying. There's also other information that is really good for entrepreneurs. You know, Rachel has on here local government agencies, the Chamber of Commerce, going into your local counties and seeing what they offer for small businesses, especially for entrepreneur. These are really great sources for us to go into and see what's happening within the market. Being able to network is one of the other things that I've been doing, joining professional networking groups. LinkedIn has tons of groups that you can join. And what that does is it gives you access to what other people are doing. You can go to their website, look at where they're at, and look at what prices or what they're charging for different services. In your network group, it gives you an opportunity to where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have data that you can take and incorporate that data into your own world. I think that kind of walks us through some of those things that we already have. And I know you know this, so this is not a brainstorming like, whoo, I created something new. We all know these things, but we haven't dug deeper into these resources that we have. So our job today is to bring this closer to you so you know where to go. How do I know how much I'm worth? And then when I look at the market, how do I know how that market is going to pay me for that specific job?
Myrna, I think that some people know. I mean, I used to think I was pretty savvy, right? But I did know salary.com and monster.com. But to your point, there's more when you will point out some of the tools. I would ask you to look again, to everyone's phone, look again, because there's so many things that have been enhanced on these sites. I know Monster sends out articles
Yeah.
now, which are actually very nice to talk about industry trends and things that, some reminders about how to approach salary and approach our careers. So I really enjoy that information. But I will say I have my own personal, or I should say professional experience with local government and the Chamber of Commerce, because if you're an entrepreneur, they can actually help you. I partner with my local government here in Westchester County, New York, and they were able to then lead me to a research department who told me um, what career coaches were charging in my area. And they provided a range. And then from that range, then we broke it down, like Myrna was saying, how long have I been in business? How many clients do I have? What are my offerings versus someone else? And that way I could come to an equitable rate. This is wonderful because you don't have to reinvent the wheel or think, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? But I find that a lot of information is out there. But one person told me specifically that we may not share that information, like be proactive with it. But if you come
Right.
to us, we'll let you know. So I should have said,
Right.
we're not going to be proactive, but we'll give it to you if you ask us. And I've been through many programs. When I was building my business, I went to a lot of the resources that were out there, the government resources, and I found a wealth of information, but I had to go for it. I had to go
Yeah.
out there and go to the meetings. We talked about networking. I had to go to those meetings, go to those trainings and those workshops, and they gave me, and it was little or no cost because it's a government program, so it's
Hmm.
funded, it's sponsored by the government, and there is incentive to bring small business into their towns. So they actually
Yes.
gave me quite a bit, and I got all the knowledge that I needed to start a successful business. Because when I first started, I floundered a little because I didn't know what to charge or how to get very clear on my offerings. So I've developed this over time. So I would say anyone out there with an entrepreneur venture, use your local government, your chamber of commerce, and also something that Myrna and I talked about, your competitors' information. If I want to be a career coach, why don't I go on somebody else's site and see what they
Right.
charge, right? But again,
Right.
just like looking for the salary, I can't say, well, they charge this amount, I'm going to charge this amount, because how are we different? Do we differentiate?
Yes.
Something that came up last time on the workshop was about the geographic area, that you move from a higher cost of living to a lower cost and you want the same salary. That's sometimes that can work out. That's great, but it may not. But it may be okay, because if you cut your expenses, or at least your housing expenses, in half, then it's still okay. And are
Right.
there other things that still can be done to supplement the fact that you've taken other bills with you? Maybe. So that's why what I get from this also is that there's not one place to get all this information. It is a combination, but I know from personal experience that it's worth it. When I found out that I was making less than my peers, and I knew I was doing more work, because I was always prepared. I always had this, oh, got to work hard, got to make sure I'm prepared. And I looked at where we were in terms of our responsibilities. It was the same. And I decided to have this conversation with my boss, and I had it as not a confrontation, although I was a little feisty inside. I said, you know what? I pulled my information. I pulled my I was a current employee. I pulled my evaluations, my annual evaluations. I just happened to get some information on the salary. Okay, the salary chart. So that was
Hmm.
helpful. The
Hmm.
company couldn't hold it from me. It was something that was more published. And I know it was pretty broad, and it also took geography into consideration, but I still wanted to print it out because I wanted to be organized. And we'll talk about this on the next slide. But I pulled facts. My evaluations to show that I was definitely someone who was a good employee, right? I wanted to pull information on what the range for that job. And I pulled my salary and I decided to have a conversation. And I
Mhm.
said, hello, I did a formal meeting and then I went in, hello, protecting the name, and that
Mhm.
I would like a salary evaluation because I just evaluate my salary. I feel that it's coming to
Mhm.
contact that it's low. And just basically, and
Mhm.
here's the data that I provided to you. And he says, oh, okay, let me look into this. And I said, is it okay if I follow up in 2 weeks? And I said, and he says, absolutely. In 2 weeks, he had not gotten back to me. So I sent him a message, hi, do you have any information for me? And he said, oh, I'm so sorry, not yet, not yet. But I wanted to make myself important because my career is important to me. I'm important to me.
Right.
And I actually ended up being successful. And I was successful because I did not just use one, I couldn't use one source. Like, I feel this is ridiculous. I had to make sure I handled
Right.
myself in the right way. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it always worked out this way. I've had times where I have not asked for more, or I didn't handle being asked, I did not handle asking the right way, or I just let it go. So I
Right.
really wanted to mature myself and say, hey, this is going to, like Myrna was saying, it does not just set it for today, but it sets it for tomorrow and the next day. So when you look at this information, it would benefit you to do your research. I know it's work, but when you get that bonus or you get something paid for that you did not think, like childcare, education, if they say, look, we'll pay for your degree, which is going to also put you into
Oh,
what is
yes.
knowledge, skills, and abilities, put you into a higher range, then that is definitely worth it. So this is snippets of stuff we know. Salary and Monster. Look at them
Mhm.
again. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that was something new for me. I'm like, wow, because there's a standard by which these companies have to follow. And then she has here company information, because these are things that you can also use. If this job has been open a while, it may be an indication that they're not getting the right candidate. Myrna made a comment about that person who had a good experience, that they were actually the chosen one for that position. They spent a lot of money trying to
Mhm.
hire for it, but they couldn't. So really, if she pressed, from what she said, she might have gotten that bit of a raise, but she
Yeah.
took 5,000 more, which she did not have to pay. Why is this job open? What's the turnover rate? Look at Glassdoor, what the employees are saying about it. Because if the employees are, what I find is when I look at those things, if I see trends, like if one person's saying this company is horrible, everybody else is saying this is great, we might be disgruntled. But if everyone's
Right.
saying don't come here because of such and such thing, then that's also something you need to take in consideration. Maybe you really, really need a job, but maybe they need to make it worth your while. And then the geographic location, like we talked about, maybe I can't come from New York to, to Florida and make the same money. Maybe I can. Maybe I will try, but if I
But
can't,
you, right, and you have benefits or other trade-offs. So Florida,
absolutely.
you're not paying state taxes. So
Yes.
there are other trade-offs that you may get from going to a lower cost of living. But then you have to think about the reverse. What if you're going from Florida to New York?
Then
So
two
yeah, you
kids.
really need to be negotiating your salary.
Absolutely. And then we look at important considerations, which I really like this slide that as we were talking about it. Uh, Important considerations when going for salary negotiation. Myrna, do you want to take these?
Sure. So, we're talking about preparation, and there's one piece in doing research. That's one part of preparation. Researching your value. We didn't talk a lot about going into depth about your experiences and your skills, but in that specific area, you want to focus on what you have accomplished. Companies or leaders love numbers. You've been able to show that you have brought so much money to the bottom line, or you've reduced turnover, whatever. We really want to hear that, because that means that it's going to be an asset to our company. But part of that preparation is also making sure that you are look ready. And we talk about being attentive, coming into a meeting. We're doing so many things virtual. Some of you may be going into the office, but even going into the office, I think a lot of companies are scattering the days just for the social distancing. So making sure that you are ready, that you are attentive, that you have your focus so that you look like you're ready to have a conversation. You look professional. You're not in your t-shirt that the collar is all out of shape. But you are professionally ready, looked, and attentive. You're ready to have this dialogue.
Walmart said the shirts they now have it was either Walmart or Target where people are buying the shirts are in high demand, not the pants because we need to look
Right,
cute
right,
ready up
right,
top and then we can do what we want down the bottom.
right. Absolutely.
One thing that you also talked about, Myrna, with attentiveness and like you said, distractions, getting rid of distractions. And it's so
Yeah.
funny that it's easy to say, make sure that because it's how important you take your career because this is like one snippet in time that can make or break something. But we understand that you can't always like we're all working in the same house, we're all working with all the distractions. It's important to try to minimize them. And it's so funny, we talked
Yes.
about this, but right before we started this call, I live in a high-rise building. A dog just started barking in the hallway. Well, I can't control him. And Myrna, drill sergeant, says, Rachel, you know you're supposed to be ready. And I thought about that. I say it's very relevant for what we're talking about today. If something like that happens, it's good to say, I'm so sorry about this, that
Right.
with my neighbor or whatever, like just addressing it. Um, because people do understand. But it's important where you can minimize to do that.
Right. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's to take those precautions to make sure that those things are taken care of. If I have a pet, making sure my cat's not running up, in between the conversation. So maybe putting that pet outside the door, closing the door. I know in my apartment in New York, it was 1 bedroom and very, very small, and I actually worked in the hallway. So it's very difficult when you have two people working from home, but being able to minimize some of that a distraction while you're in a dialogue, especially about your salary negotiation, because you are really trying to be focused, and I'm telling you, I feel like I'm an expert. I talk to people every day about their salaries, but there's something about when I have to talk about myself that I'm a little bit on edge. So just making sure that I'm focused and I have my attention, and those distractions are things that I don't have to be concerned with during that time period. We talked about, our verbiage, and, one of the things Rachel talked about is that mentality and coming in and really feeling comfortable with your level of confidence. So I know from personal experience with Rachel that when she went to her boss, she not only pulled her reviews, but in those reviews, it talked about her accomplishments. It talked about what she had contributed to the organization. When Rachel and I worked together, I worked in Columbus, Ohio, and I think Rachel was in New York. Or were you in Newark, New Jersey?
New
You
York.
were in well, you were in New Jersey first, then you went to New York.
Yep.
But what I kept hearing was this name, Rachel Gatling, and I kept seeing Rachel show up for meetings and providing us with information. So once we began to work a little bit closer, Rachel was moving up in title, but she was lagging from the compensation perspective. So the fact that she's moving up in title and they're giving her more work, there was just this level of inequity. And so my job as an HR professional is to coach our leaders on making sure that there's internal equity. But I want to go back to that young lady that asked for more money and the $5,000. Now, we probably wouldn't have given her exactly what she wanted, but we probably would have given her a couple more $1,000. One of the reasons we decided to move to the COBRA is so that we could keep internal equity consistent. Internal equity doesn't mean that everyone at that title is paid the same, but what it does mean is based on their experience, their education background, that we are consistent with how we place like people within the salary range. So confidence versus cockiness, is so important. And then being able to have a dialogue where you take out some of that emotion and really make it fact-based helps to make the conversation smoother and admirable. You're going to walk away feeling that you still have an ally versus walking away feeling like, yeah, I'm his enemy, he's my enemy. So verbiage is really important.
Yeah.
And then information, I don't know if you want to talk more about information in
What
organization.
the reason why we added this slide was because of Myrna, to make sure that what you have is your documentation. You've done all this research, looked at all these websites, pulled your information, pulled your ideas and your notes, your speaking points, because it is an intimidating conversation. So you may need speaking notes, and the way that you present that is to say, can I take notes? And they say yes, right? Because who's going to say no? You can't take notes, and you have your notes there reading, right? So
Right.
make sure they're organized. You're not, even if you're in person or Zoom, you can't, okay, hold on, let me get this. Make sure you're organized. Fact-based information, leave out the I feel, I think, I deserve. Fact-based information, and make sure it's relevant. If you are new to the job, going in with your resume and your accomplishments, if you're in the job, accomplishments, reviews, things like that. And either way, whether you're employer or if you are a entrepreneur, going in with the
Mhm.
whatever information, what you offer. I always talk about a one page
Yeah.
marketing
Bio.
that basically talks about who you are, because that is relevant for the company to consider you for as an entrepreneur, your client. So always have that information of what you need, and don't, because it's so horrible to say, oh, I'll get back to you. The only time we need to do that now is say with references, available upon request, which you should still have them anyway. But
Right.
just making sure you have everything together in one place and ready to have that conversation. If you're not ready, then schedule it out. You can't talk about it today because it makes you look sloppy. And like Myrna talked about, the way that you approach it is the way that the company views you, and it can determine your success or not. The people that I knew that were not successful is when they didn't have, first of all, their confidence was lagging or their information. And you get this chance. And if you are not ready, come back, but have everything together. So I think this is a really important point, and I'm glad
Mhm.
Myrna had talked about organization. And I think the last one she had, which is not here, and then we're going to take a small break and then come back for
Oh
a
yeah.
Q&A, is about asking. Ask. You know, there's this book out, and I know we have men and women on the phone, but it's Women Don't Ask. And I think it's so important, and I know it's not everyone, but we find in general, women don't ask. You will sit there and stew. I've come in contact with people. I've been a manager for probably over 30 years.
Mhm.
And I see people, especially women, who sit there with their head down working, and you expect the company to notice you. You expect that someone will come and do the right thing. And I will tell you that Myrna is very rare in the fact that she coached her leaders on fair pay, and she coached the people that were impacted. I was not the only one. I was just glad to have taken part because it changed my life. But they aren't doing those things. So it's up to you. And really, it is up to you to manage your career. Manage your career. You're in that driver's seat, and you need to make sure that you are, like I said, take yourself seriously, your career seriously, and make sure you stay up on the trends, stay up on the information. So when that happens, when you see it, ask. Like I
Right.
said, Myrna put out something that said that don't ask just to ask. If you say I want to make 50,000, your company pays you 50,000. Okay, some people could say, well, then maybe I was underpaid or whatever. Maybe I should ask to ask. And you should go back and negotiate, because, like Myrna said, the company expects you to negotiate. But if they come back and say no, you don't have to keep going back. They gave you what you asked for, right? It's not you should settle, and you should look for some of those equivalents for sure. But when it's time, ask and be intentional about it. Think about why, right? What do you
Yes.
need? And this is something she also says, and we'll say that in the wrap up. What is that load that you will take? Because I also remember a very embarrassing story of a woman out on the West Coast who was working for a company. Can't remember the name of it now, but she could not live on what she was paid. She was in a very high salary
Mhm.
area, and she could not live on what she was paid. So she was asking people for money, and then she wrote a nasty letter about her CEO and how he wasn't paying her so much. She ended up getting fired, and then she went out for a, what is it, a crowd fund to try to get money. People looked down on her. People were like, what is wrong with you? If you can't afford what they're trying to pay you, I know you need a job, which is okay, which is right. Today, like I can't, I'm not on my high horse. What I'm saying is that given the choice, if you can't afford that, that's not the salary you can afford, then you really need to negotiate, or you need to review your options. If you need to just take a job, then that's a different conversation. We'll talk about that when we talk about our scenarios, because we're going to have a really good session about um, chiming in. but be thoughtful about what you need. Be thoughtful
Yeah.
that if it's not just money, that I really need some childcare or I really need some educational benefits. The company really, these companies I find today are more supportive with sending people to school because it actually helps them. And then you have to give them some time back. But okay, they
Right.
pay for your education, you come out debt free from getting a degree.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
that, I'm going to give us, what time is it now? It is almost 15 after. We'll take a quick 5 minute or 6 minute break to come back at 1:20 if you're on the East Coast. And then we're going to get into the audience participation for scenarios and Q&A.
Thank you.
You. All right, we are back. You know what? At first, I was going to start with our scenarios, but I want to do Q&A. I want to make sure that we have time to answer questions. So, those of you in the audience, tell us, do you have anything that you would like to ask?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so Rach, I had a question about, I think it was Myrna who said something about a networking organization before. I don't know if she remembers what she
Ah,
said. And if she has the name of that, it would be nice if she would repeat it.
Myrna, I think
Um,
she's talking about LinkedIn.
is that what she said, LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Okay, maybe that's what it was. Okay, then.
Go ahead.
that,
And you know
that,
what, Myrna,
yeah.
tell her how you were recommending that she use LinkedIn. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
So I think LinkedIn, when you talk about specific categories or specific industries, LinkedIn is a great place where you will see a variety of groups that you can network with. So that's one of the reasons I pointed that out. I specifically and Rachel are connected with many different networks because of our, just because the variety gives you access to totally different things. And for many things, like I'm connected with the International Women group because that is a group that I share a commonality, but within that group, there's a variety of industries and positions. So not directly related to what I do, but that network is benefit. But I specifically mentioned LinkedIn because it gives you an opportunity to see things right at your fingertips.
And you know what I like about LinkedIn too? It's not just for employees, it's also for entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
everything. And you get the opportunity to network with like-minded people, but you can also find out like what the industry is doing. So it is kind of like a one, it's not a complete one-stop shop because you have to do your own research, but it's close, especially now, so developed.
Mhm.
Any other question?
Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you. Oh, wait. Oh, I see some chats. Oh, chat. Okay, it says for the first.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. For the first, don't talk about me, Myrna. I tell you. For the first case you mentioned, you said that if she had come back a second time, you would have increased her salary. How often should you come back when negotiating? If they give you another offer, push back and again and ask for more. I like that.
That was Christine, right?
Yes. Hey,
Yeah. Hi,
Christine.
Christine. Welcome. So I don't know if I said this, so I apologize if I didn't, but I want to commend each of you for taking time out to invest in yourself. And not only that, you chose there, time is limited and you can't get it back, but you chose to be here with us. So we are so appreciative. Christine, I don't know if we're going to talk about this later, but at the end of the day, you might go to your employer with a range. But what Rachel said earlier is you should have a drop dead number. If your employer, and it's a little different if you're already in a job versus being outside, coming into a job with an offer. If you are already within a job or even outside, think about how it looks with going to a person with an ask and then coming back and then going back. So at the end of the day, you need to decide, what am I really looking for? And you need to be able to leave that discussion as allies. So when you start to go back and forth 3-4 different times, that's when you start creating this defensiveness. I typically say, I'm going to go to an employer with my ask at the beginning. So whether it's a salary of this, really looking for 4 weeks vacation, like to work at home. I know you mentioned, and in the way you ask is really important. That's really a different discussion, but just for the sake of answering your question, the way you ask is important it's not about this, this, and this. It's how you intertwine that ask with the conversations that you've had. There's no magic number on how many times you need to go back, but you really need to think about, is it relevant? Is it what you need? Or is this employer going to feel that you're just building a laundry list and not being thoughtful in what you're asking for?
That's a really good one, I think, because I like what she split it up into two. So welcome back, Christine. And also something you said, Myrna, yes, thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself. Yes, you could have been somewhere else, but if you're concerned about your career, be here because it does help you. I know people are out there soaking up the sun if they need to, but this is really important because it sets the place for your future. So thank you for that. I'm glad you mentioned it, Myrna. So she's saying if she'd come back the second time, you could have increased your salary. How often should you keep coming back? Okay. So she was referencing the first lady, but then they give you another, if they give you another offer, you push back and then again and ask for more. I guess I'm trying to understand. Christine, maybe unmute yourself. If they give you what you wanted, then why would you then come back again and ask for more?
Yeah, hi. And yeah, thanks again for hosting this great session. Yeah, my question was more around the situation where they don't give you what you asked for. So, you know, like the first example you mentioned, you didn't meet her salary ask, but you did give her COBRA. So, you know, in that situation, if she had come back again to kind of, you know, go back to what she had originally asked for, which she didn't receive, if she could have bridged that gap. And I guess, you know, I'm just thinking about, you know, even my own situation getting into this job. I think I went back like twice or maybe even 3 times, I can't remember now, to get at what I was asking. And they came back, and every time they came back, they were offering me more. So, you know, I was just wondering, like, how much is too much, you know, assuming that you didn't get what you asked for.
So you're saying that you came back again, and every time you came back, they gave you more?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think,
and by the way, I have friends who said that I should have gone back another time and they could have, you know, so I don't know what's too, but I felt like, you know, I didn't want to be the pestering person who kind of kept on doing this back and forth over and over again. So that's why I'm not sure what that right balance is.
It makes sense. So the time that you came back, they didn't give you enough. Is that why it made you go back again?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
and
Myrna?
so the last time that they gave an offer, was it close to what you were asking?
It wasn't fully, but it was close enough that I figured, you know, I felt uncomfortable going back a third time.
Yeah. And I think those are things that you need to consider because, again, you want to leave a discussion where you are allies and where maybe not allies because you're not necessarily friends, but it's an amenable conversation and you're not feeling defensive. So you felt comfortable, like I said, have that bottom number. You felt comfortable with that. Another piece, and again, we're going into discussion, Rachel. This is the discussion piece, not the preparation. But I'll say this, and then we could move on.
Yep.
Another piece would be, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the salary of blah, blah, blah. Is it possible that 6 months we can revisit this? So that's another way, like you said, you didn't get what you really wanted, but it was closer and you had gone back 3 times. That's another way to appreciate what you have and then move to saying, let's revisit this, you know, down the road.
So first of all, let me say, Christine, congratulations for being in the 83% that Myrna stated earlier that actually was successful getting her salary negotiated, and the 40% of people who actually do move forward and negotiate. That's great. And yeah, I do agree with Myrna. I like how you, first of all, that you set that number. You knew what you could work with. You were persistent, but yeah, I like what you said about revisiting in the future.
Thank you.
And then knowing the salary and the equivalence that may equal up to the salary. So congratulations to you.
And that doesn't close it. When you say let's visit in the future, it doesn't close. It leads you to another opportunity to have that discussion. And so it gets you maybe a little bit closer to your ask.
The next one is, I'm concerned about negotiating my salary because my industry is struggling. It's fashion. And I think I'm at the top of my salary already for my role. Also, any advice on possibly changing industries but not taking too much of a salary hit? So 2 questions here: negotiating salary in an industry that may be struggling, and if you're already at the top of, but think is a big question, is a big word, right? You think that you have to be sure, and then even if you are, right, how do you approach a salary negotiation in a struggling industry?
I think that question is from Rosa. And so one of the things that, we talked earlier on our previous workshop was about COVID-19, about companies struggling and that piece. And, in relationship to that, the industry struggling, it still should not stop you from asking for a salary increase. Now, Rachel, Rosa, you have added several layers of this. My industry is struggling. I think I'm at the top. That's a totally different component if you're at the top of your pay range, because at that point, the organization can say, we are paying you a competitive salary, and we're also paying you what you are contributing to the job. So if there are some things that have changed favorable, yes, you're paying me competitive. However, I have been able to do blah, blah, blah. And this in turn has benefited the company. So if there are some things that you can bring to the table that shows what you're paying me in order for it to really be competitive should be more, then those are the things you should talk about. I think that those 2 things are really difficult. The fact that you are struggling, the industry is struggling, does not negate the fact of negotiating a salary.
Yeah, it's a lot here, like you said, Myrna, because if you're at the top of your salary range, why do you want to change? And like you said, maybe you still say, okay, but we're still having issues here. It's still not enough for me, or I've accomplished,
Right.
these are the fashion people, the people, my peers, and this is where I am because I'm called
Right.
to do this, and I'm actually leading, and I'm doing these extra things. There's a lot here that you could actually use as leverage. So I think we need a little more information on that as well. But I agree with Myrna, you should still go after it. It's just that your why and what is going to be very important here.
Yeah, make sure you have those answered.
Yep. Advice on possibly changing industries, but not taking too much of a salary hit.
Yeah. So I will tell you from a personal perspective, and I've worked with a couple people in different sectors and different industries. So for instance, I've worked with people who were in HR and they were in consumer products, and now they're moving over into behavior health. 2 different industries. So depending on where you were at in this consumer product, they may have a different market value for compensation than behavior health, and behavior health is less. So that you need to look at. You need to look at the industry, and then you also need to think about what the job is related coming over. Because another example is an individual who had been an HR specialist. And when you talk about HR, a coordinator or specialist, those are some of the entry-level positions, but she wants to move over to a different industry, and she's been a specialist for so many years. Different industry, lower market value in that industry, and also maybe a different job. So those are 2 things. What is the job and what is the market value within that industry? Those are 2 things you need to really figure out.
But also, Myrna, what about the fact that maybe she has no experience in that role because she's starting like from the foundation, from the ground up?
Yeah, and so that's why I said the job. Sometimes you don't be fooled. I'm on a networking group that I love, and it's senior level HR people. So these are individuals who make the decisions, like they were SVPs of HR or VPs of HR. And one of the things the head of the networking group said, apply for the position. Just because it has a title does not mean that all those things within that title are things that you haven't done under a different title. So your opportunity is to present. So if they're saying we're looking for someone who has supervised a team, well, maybe in your present job, you don't have a title where you supervise people, but maybe you bring on interns, or maybe you have other groups that you supervise that group on specific projects. So it is how you are able to translate what you bring to that position. The other thing that, his name is Stanley said to us, even if you think there's something within that job that you may not be qualified for, still apply for it.
Absolutely.
So, you know, two things I think you need to look at is what position you're looking at and what industry. And I think that'll bring you closer to your answer, what you really need to do or be able to accept. The other thing is you need to look at what you can accept. We all have financial liabilities, responsibilities, they are liabilities. So you want to make sure that you're able to meet your financial obligations. And for me, I'm looking at what's happening with my 401k. How am I saving? How, you know, there's not a lot of leisure things we're doing because we're not going out to movies. We're not going out to dinner right now. But how are you preparing for the future from a financial perspective?
So I like this one, and I will tell you, Rosa, I'm the queen of this subject because I get bored and I move on to different things. And I have been actually very blessed to be able to move. What Myrna said is very telling for me. Leadership. If you're good in leadership in the fashion industry, you can be good in leadership and finance. Like whatever you were trying to go to, there are comparable skills. So please take what Myrna said to heart. I hope you're really taking notes. I wrote down leadership, relationship building, analytics, the way that you learn fast. That will help you because I've had where I've moved to sales, to customer service, to supply chain. And the reason why, and people have given me a chance, and I did not take a cut in my salary because I was a leader and I showed myself as a strong leader. So I moved my comparable skills over. I was fortunate, not to say it would always happen, but I've seen it happen for other people too. That's why I know, because we talked about it. Like Myrna said, apply anyway, and then list out the comparable skills that you have. Because like she said, first of all, whoever's writing these job descriptions, if you really look, they may not be the person that is, say, the hiring manager. They might be a HR person that's just doing something that's pretty general. So there are, and then get a feel for the role or the industry that you're applying for. If you wanted to go into something like finance, join a finance group and understand what they're doing and how to relate it to what you do now and your hobbies and your and things that say
Volunteer.
You have a knowledge of. Yeah, volunteer, your hobbies and your interest to find out how do I may have something that I actually do that relates to this. If say you're on an association or a side, like say your condo board or something, and you the finance for them, all that stuff counts. And the fact that you've moved up in your current industry to this level, all that stuff counts for you. So I would say yes, go do that. Go forward.
So let me put a plug in. One plug is we are doing a workshop on the conversation or the ask. So how do you ask for more money? What is some of that verbiage? What's that terminology? So that's a plug for you to keep in touch with Rachel. Change your story, knowing what she's doing. The other plug I want to put in is each of us are coaches and career coaches. So if there are specific things, right now I'm coaching an individual, and part of our contract allows me to coach her specifically as she's in the interviewing stage. So that may be something where you want to look at investing in yourself for some specific guidance.
Yep, absolutely. And it's worth it, right? It's worth your situation. Ooh, my speaker. All right, the next one is from Doris. Hey, Doris. Are you allowed to take time to think about their offer after you negotiate, or do you have to decide right then and there?
You know what? So we are now getting again into discussion. But what I will say is, in general, you should never accept an offer once you receive it. You should be gracious. You should express that excitement. You should make it known that you want to be a part of that organization. And then you should ask for some time to think about it.
Why?
First of all, you want to make sure that you are prepared to go into the salary negotiation. You should never take an offer and accept that offer. You should always negotiate every salary or every offer that you get. And so in order for you to take that time, pause, make sure you're prepared, as well as allow that employer to feel like, oh, I really want this person. Why didn't they accept? So you're allowing that employer to think, and either the employer is going to go back to whomever. I usually have leaders come back to me to say, oh, she wanted the weekend to think it over. And so I said, well, why did she want the weekend? My question is, did she have a question? And so, from there we decide, do you want me to call her? No, let's get over the weekend, or yes. So you want that employer to be curious about you. So I always say, express your gratitude and your excitement, but never accept a job on the spot, unless it is $1 million. Now then you take it, sign the papers, and run and ask them if they need somebody else to join the company too. That would be me.
Okie dokie. Any other questions? Let's see. I think I have another one in here. Maybe it's the $1 million. Related to translating your skills across multiple industries, is there a list of skills or keywords that are applicable nearly universally? That's Jaren. Hey, Jaren.
Yeah, there is. I don't have the resource right in front of me. So Rachel, you're keeping track of the questions?
Yep.
Because what we can do is what we did at our last workshop is we went back out and answered some of the questions.
That's if we couldn't answer. Yeah, I can get back to them. I can copy that one down for sure.
There are definitely lists. And there's also, we talked briefly about how organizations are now using AIs to screen through resumes and to reject resumes. I've completed an application, and in 2 seconds I get, thank you very much. We decided to look at other candidates. I'm like, you ain't even looked at my resume. So making sure that your resume has right words, the key words that match up to that job description, is also very important. So those words and the list of skills that are interchangeable or very similar, those are very important.
Okay, so Jaren, we will get back to you with that. Thank you. Melissa says, can you explain salary negotiation from more of an entrepreneurial standpoint? And we talked about this. We have that in our scenarios.
Yeah, I said, boy, can we?
Yes,
and I think, just high level, Melissa, because both Rachel and I are doing things on our own. I had a fitness center, and there's just so many things that go into contracting or negotiating a specific job. Right now, working as a coach, I do think that one of the things that we talked about during the seminar is looking at organizations that have gaps. And I know your situation is a little different because you're a fashion, you're a designer, but looking at the gaps that you see posted in for organization gives you an opportunity to see what jobs are needed, what they're paying for those jobs. The other piece is you have to take that dollar amount and then divide that by the hours that you're going to contribute into that work. But one of the big pieces being an entrepreneur is that you utilize your own resources and your own tools. When you go work for a company, they give you a laptop or they give you a cell phone. They pay for possibly your internet or whatever. As an entrepreneur, you're bringing your own resources to the table. So that may be something you want to consider too when you start looking at how to negotiate the salary. But you need to have a starting point, knowing what other, individuals are putting on the table.
When I also, like I was saying before, with the local government, it's so important. And I can give you the resource because I think it should be universal towards, and I'll send you this too, towards everyone in every county, I guess, or city government, because it was so helpful for me. And I took an entrepreneur course. That's what helped me to find out where these resources were. And I made sure I partnered, I stayed close because these things were free to find out what was offered to entrepreneurs because they got incentivized. So governments get money to bring in business, local business, because it helps the economy. And once that happens, they share. Again, they were not forward, but when I went to ask them, they gave me everything. I just didn't know it was out there until I started researching. So understanding that for my specific industry in my specific area, this was the range. And then I honed it in to say, what's my specialty versus someone else? What am I doing versus someone else? And we got to a range. And that's where I started. And I can't be scared of that number because what happens, I took a coaching curriculum and I did a lot of work to prepare to become an entrepreneur because I was always in the corporate world and I thought I would be forever. And at one point I was, my division closed, and instead of going back to corporate, I said, I got it packaged out. And I thought, you know what, I've been given this advice, mentoring, coaching for a long time, just as a side thing. Let me see how if I could be successful doing it. But when I started, I was so green. I knew how to coach. I just didn't know how to run my business. So I did a lot of different things to learn, a lot of research. I mean, it was a full-time job researching. I was like, I can go back to work. So it was helpful for me to learn how. And I saw that at first when I would tell people a rate, and if they were like, well, I don't know, then I was trying to sacrifice. But then someone gave me great advice and said, no, that is your rate. You stand with your rate because people have to know that, again, you take yourself seriously. They need to do it as well. There will be times when you can discount. And we may talk about this later, but if not, I can address it now. That like COVID-19, everybody can't pay a certain fee, but you need to make it clear that, okay, so I'm going to give a discount rate at this point for this amount of time, say for 3 months or, while during this period or whatever it is, and then my rate will change to this. And something that Myrna actually taught me that you can grandfather people in. So you can say that, okay, say you charged 20 an hour, I'm just throwing out something, 20 an hour for this particular time. And then when the rates go back up, because after you get out, say, of a COVID period, people are stronger, then you stay at the $20, or maybe your usual rate is 50, but you raise them up just to 40 because they were ones that supported you during this period. But it needs to be contractual, and you need to tell them this is why. Because one thing I was also taught is once you get those rates, if you go low, you can never go back up. It's rare that you can go back up because people are like, wait, what are you doing? It's the bait and switch. No, you can negotiate. And also another thing that I do is I say it's one session is this price. If you do 5 sessions, then we discount it to this price. 10 session packages up front or in 2 payments are this is the price for this. So there's ways that you can negotiate as an entrepreneur. You just need to make sure it's a contractual thing and make sure it's clear and make sure you know what the industry is charging, because you also don't want to have everybody's around is charging 100 and you're charging 50, because that goes into what Myrna's saying. You're using a lot of your own resources, something I was also taught. You do a lot of homework to prepare for whatever your industry is. Say if you're you're a designer. It's not just when you're designing someone's home, but what do you do in the background stuff when you are preparing for that meeting? There's a lot that goes into it. So have the respect for yourself and say, this is my rate, but this is what you get for my rate. And make sure that you're strong enough in your offerings and how you position yourself. Like, be clear and strong in what you are offering so that people know that you're worth it. I said a lot there. Any other questions? I get passionate about that because I know for me, it was important for me to really get my business. I did not price properly going at first, to back up and then learn how to run my business. All right. Let's go to, we have 5 minutes for interaction. So I'm only going to do 2 of these and then we're going to wrap up. So we actually talked about current employee wants to ask for a raise, but the salary set. I think we did that with your first scenario. She wasn't a current employee, but she said the 50,000, and we talked about how you can then offer other things, right? Those other things, the bonuses, the education, things like that. Here's one: a potential employee is desperate for a job. They really need a job. It's understandable in the world today where many people have lost their jobs. So should they negotiate? And what if they really can't get what they need, but they said, look, I need a paycheck?
Yeah. So I think this is a great example. One, I would go back to mentality. You know, when you are in a situation where you feel that you are the underdog and you've had so many doors close in your face, you start to feel like, I'm just going to take anything. And you know it, believe it or not, when you are in that interview conversation with the prospective employer, you're letting that employer know that. And it's how you talk. So having that right mental space is so important. And, you know, there's different things that you can do to make sure that you, first of all, have that mental state. I am not desperate. And even though you might be from a sense of bills and financial responsibility, you have a lot to bring to the table. You have a lot to contribute. And so what you need to go back is look at your accomplishment, look at where you're at, look at what you have achieved, look at the successes that you had prior to this moment. You should always negotiate. I'm not going to change that tagline. Once you are confident and you've received that offer, believe me, again, I said this, the company wants you. You know, you might think that I'm not feeling real comfortable, that I have enough to contribute or I'm worthy, but the company wants you. If they have extended you an offer, they want you. So I would go in. You need to really be reasonable. That's what I said. You might have a range, but you should always have a bottom number. If my range is from 50 to 75, maybe my bottom number is 50. Don't come in with a range from 50 to 75 and the manager offers you 60, because they've already exceeded what you wanted. But come in knowing, if I tell you this is my range and the manager doesn't meet that 50, then I'm going to go back. And it's the dialogue that helps you move that number closer to what your ask is. You are never desperate. And that's one of the things that, you know, if I could just, you know, get into your head, those negative thoughts, you need to push them out. I have a saying, doubt the doubt. Don't trust it, you know? And so be confident in what you have already done. This moment will pass.
So I really like Myrna. Next one, Jeremy says, I've decided to start recently interviewing. I have discovered I can sometimes get the hiring manager to share the salary range of the position. Go, Jeremy. Assuming I can build an argument that first of all, you shouldn't say argument, that I should be paid higher. How flexible would you say companies are if they're sharing the range and it is on the lower end? So sharing salary range is on the lower end. How flexible would they be to increase it?
Yeah, so you know what, Jeremy, the first thing when you come into a conversation with a recruiter, the first thing they are, before they hang up the phone, probably not the first thing, they usually ask you, what are you looking for? Right now, there are laws that say in certain states that you can't ask what a person is making, but
Yeah.
they will ask what you're looking for. I would turn that around and say, I see what you're asking for in relationship to the job components. Can you tell me what the salary range is? I'd start it with a phrase, so it's not really a direct question when, right after they've asked you a question, but then I'd add that twist. Most recruiters will give you, well, we're looking at a range from blah, blah to blah. And then you move on.
But he's saying
Well,
they
that's-
share the salary range, but then they still want to pay him low, right?
So say it again, what's the
I
question?
think and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's saying that they will share the salary range, but then they still want to pay on the lower end. So how willing would they be to negotiate if they're sharing a salary range, but they're still trying to pay him on the low end? How
Yes, you got
okay,
it,
yeah, I
Rachel.
got it.
You said,
Okay.
so here, if they're sharing the salary range, so I'm just gonna say it like this. They're sharing the salary range of 50 to 70. When they extend you an offer, they offer you 50. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, if you're asking for more money, you need to bring to the table why 50 is not appropriate for you. And so the way you bring that to the table, they already have what they consider to be a competitive range. So you need to have a dollar, a low that you're going to accept, and then you need to describe why you should receive more money. And that comes through your skills, your experience, because that range is determined based on the education, based on the experience, based on the skills. So where you fit within that range depends on your worth, depends on your value, what you are bringing to that position. That's what places you in the range. So
those
that opens up a
right?
conversation
Mhm.
for negotiation.
So what you said, those knowledge, skills, and abilities, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, so I want to say, first of all, let me see where I have this. I have some things where I want, because we're almost at the time and I want to be respectful. Let's see. Okay, wrapping up. Have a salary range rather than an exact figure in mind. I know that Myrna talked about a person who had a figure in mind, but that was only after she was given something and she came back and said, I was thinking a little bit more about this. So have a range in mind because it's something you can work with. And please make sure that range is the right range and have a low. And she told me about this yesterday. Again, I learned so much. You see, I'm taking notes myself. A low, even if you don't reveal what that low is, make sure you have a low in mind, something that you cannot drop below. So that way you're making a very fact-based and informed decision. You must be prepared with facts and quantifiable data when you approach salary negotiations. So please do your research. You've gotten a lot of resources here. So you need to know your value and your market value. And please make it data-based. That way you can't argue with the data, right? There are more other components that contribute to pay that are important to consider. Talked about that. And that's pay meaning just your base salary. There's other things. And salary negotiation is a conversation, not a battle, and should not be approached negatively or with a combative mindset. Discussion. And then to Myrna's previous, and we didn't go over the interactions, but we talked a lot about those things. Employer wants to ask for a raise, but the salary set. Employer is desperate for a job, and entrepreneur has a failing business, and entrepreneur during times of COVID that you know you can give the discounts. But again, be very explicit about it. The next thing is how to contact us. You will see, and I'll share this deck. And last time I had problems with the recording, but we did record today. So you will receive the recording as well. This is my information, changeyourstory.today, which is my website, and rgatling at changeyourstory.today is my email address. I already got an email from Nicole, and your answer is yes. She wanted to know if we offered more than just seminars, but also coaching, and we do to help you find the right career. We absolutely do, and here's our information. Myrna, her information is here, ANRYM@insight.rr.com. Please contact her as well. You see she has a lot to offer. Next is the salary negotiation part 3, which is called the discussion. So this is getting into the true discussion. We look great, we look professional, we've done our preparation, we've done our homework, and now it's time to sit down and have that discussion. That will be next, our next event to be scheduled, so you'll get an invitation or notification. One-on-one coaching opportunities, we're offering, just like we did last time, 30 days for half price coaching with either one of us. Just send an email to me on my site, rgatling at changeyourstory.today, or you can go on my website with the contact us, or schedule with Myrna, whatever you want to do. Contact us to schedule. In this 30 days from today, half price coaching. It's worth it because you'll get your individual situation analyzed, and I think that's very important. I do a lot of investing in myself because it actually, I see the dividends. I see how it increases my salary. And then suggestions are welcome. You will get a post survey at the end of this workshop. Please fill it out because we take that seriously. That's how we were able to allocate probably 45 minutes today for interaction. Last time I think we had 20. We had so much information, so we had 20 minutes. But today we had more. Oh, I saw another question come up, but I can't get it. Hold on. But yes, please fill out the survey. It's important. Oh, okay. And can you repeat the phrase that we should give to recruiters if they're asking what salary you're expecting? Myrna, that's you. We'll end on that.
So I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Re-
So again, I'm
repeat the
going
phrase.
to encourage you to invest in yourself on a private conversation with either Rachel, or if you feel comfortable with another coach. So just in general, in relationship to that question, I would say something similar to, based on the job tasks and the responsibilities that you have described, I would be looking, can you tell me what range you have established for this position?
You know what? Now that they know that they can't ask, I find that recruiters are telling me, they say, I know I can't ask, but just in case, so they know. So if you say, I respectfully decline, or it's going to be based on the skills and abilities and that's needed for the job, they're perfectly, and then we can talk about it at that time when we really evaluate the job.
Yes.
They're actually very understanding.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for your time and attention. Again, don't forget the survey. I will send you out the recording, and please try to listen to it within, say, 48 hours. That way it's fresh in your mind, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
You all.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.